Hi, this is Sarah Parker, and I wanted to show a video walkthrough of my final application that I developed and created for the University of Tennessee Chattanooga Master of Computer Science program for my final project. This application helps bridge the gaps for medical providers when they're at one facility, but a patient has had a visit at a separate facility. Getting their medical records can be challenging and time consuming. So this application provides a way to connect those records in one place, making it easier for providers to provide better continuity of care for patients. So this will not be a technical explanation, though the application was developed using Python and Fast API on the back end, and a React library was used on the front end with JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. So the first thing I wanted to show is that the application, all of the routes are protected. So you cannot just come up here to the login bar and change it and access the application. You have to sign in first. There's also role-based access tied into this application. So this can be defined in the back end. The providers have access to certain features, whereas maybe administration does not have access to certain features, such as viewing specific patient data. So for the first part, we'll just go through the provider. And these are just test credentials. You can log in. And once it has logged in, you can see who the user is up here at the top, their role, and then just a basic navigation bar. For this application, I have connected it to Cerner and Epic, which are two of the most widely used electronic healthcare record systems. I registered this application with both of these companies' sandbox so that I could access sandbox data. The data is pulled in through a FHIR format, and this is the big part of making this application interoperable and why most EHR systems cannot pull records easily from different systems. So anyway, if you click on, we'll go through Cerner first. It does an OAuth 2.0 login on the back end using the credentials, and it'll reroute you to Cerner's sandbox portal. So these are just the test credentials that Cerner has given to allow access to the sandbox. This will send the information and verify it over to Cerner. Once it is verified, it will take us back over to our application, and it'll take you to the search function. So for Cerner, there are certain patients that are known to work, and that's why I put those patients here at the top, just to make it easy for demonstration purposes. We will search for a patient named Smarts. This will call the backend and then search the sandbox, and we get a list of relevant patients with patient identification numbers and their date of birth. That way providers can verify it with the patient that they're searching for to make sure that they are pulling up the correct patient. We're going to click on this first one. The information I chose, FHIR bundles show a lot of data. You can pull demographics, you can pull notes, you can pull labs, you can pull observations. Let's try that again. There we go. Okay. So the ones that I felt were relevant from an emergency standpoint, which is I work in the emergency department currently, would be radiology reports, lab reports, and clinical notes. So those are the three types of FHIR data sets that I focused to pull from. So for this patient, there are no radiology reports. It does confirm the patient that we selected up here. But it does show that we have some lab levels that we can look at, and then maybe some clinical notes from the other facility that we could also look at. I will pull up a potassium level, which we won't actually get a potassium level. This is one of the limitations of sandbox data. The report is there, but we are not allowed to access it. So this is just the metadata from that Fire bundle. So it's there. It would work if we had access. If it was connected to a real electronic health record, it would actually pull it up. But I just formatted it so that I could demonstrate it is effective. We just don't. There's actually not anything there to pull. So it opens in a new window, as you can see up here. So to go back, we just have to click on our tab. And then we could do the same thing for a clinical note. And you can see that it pulls up the data. It's not an actual clinical note, but it does pull it the way that I expected it to. So that is the Cerner capability of it. You could click the home button and go back to home. Or you could just hit Epic search, but we will hit Epic here. And this is going to do the same thing that it did for Cerner. It's redirecting us to Epic, and it's going through the OAuth 2.0 flow. And so I will use the Epic sandbox credentials. Yes, these are just generic credentials. Don't worry, this is not actually exposing any sensitive information. This is going to take us back to our application, just like the Cerner. So the difference with the Epic Sandbox is one of the limitations is that you cannot search by patient name. And I'm not quite sure why. This is just a known limitation with the Sandbox, that you have to have a patient identification number, which if you were a provider at a different facility would obviously not be helpful. You wouldn't know the other facility's identification number. But if it was connected to real EHR system, you would be able to search by patient name, not just by patient ID. So this is a patient identification from the Sandbox that they have listed. And so you can just copy and paste it here into the search bar, and it will pull up your patient match. This time it's just going to match one patient because it's just the identification number. It's not trying to pull partial matches from a name. You can click on the patient, and same thing. You can pull up a diagnostic study, which you can't access in the Sandbox. So this is just the metadata, which I played around with, just making it a little bit more fancy. But it was an imaging study by a physician. It's text HTML, but this isn't the actual document. This is just the metadata for it. We can go back and pull up a consult note. Same thing. But it would work if it was connected to an actual EHR system. So that is pretty much the whole application. You can go back and if we did admin, I just wanted to show that if we try to pull up a patient from the admin side, actually I need to be on Epic, I believe. From the Epic search, you can search a patient, but it's not going to show any of the radiology reports or lab reports. And that's just how I have it set up in the backside. Obviously, you could change the application to allow access to whoever you want, but this is just a different way for the application to secure who has access to protected health information and who doesn't. So admin could use this to see if a patient actually does have a record at a different facility, but wouldn't be able to pull up the clinical information from that patient. So this is my application. The other thing that's not shown here is that I do have audit logging on all of the clicks for this application. So anytime somebody logs in, it gets logged into a SQL database. Anytime you click that you're going to look for a patient, it gets logged. Anytime you actually open the documents, it gets logged. And that's just for HIPAA compliance. So that way there is a record of who has touched any protected health information should that need to happen. So anyway, that is the end of my walkthrough. I am proud of this application. I think it would actually have really good clinical benefits. in the healthcare world. And so that is the Connect EHR system. Thank you.